namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayamudiraye Ashtaprayeshu bhadreshu Nityam bhagavata sevaya Bhagavati uttama shloke Bhakti bhavati nashiki Speaking together. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very ancient compass, one should offer respectful obeisances to the personality of Godhead, Narayan. Narayan Rishi, the supremest human being. And Saraswati, and Shiva Vasudev. Attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam. All the troubles of the heart is almost completely destroyed. And the servants of the personality of God, so raise the passion of song, establish under their vocal act. Krishna, good morning everyone. It's so nice to be back again at Krishna's. Today we are reading from the third canto, chapter 22, verses 15 through 27. So we'll just get started with reading the verses one after the other. Before that, okay, but we're getting set up. What did we hear about yesterday? Someone is about to get married. People, can someone name the two people involved? Yes, Alex. You name one of them. Maybe the Prabhu. Mahuti. Okay, that's okay. That's all. She's also Prabhu. And Kardama Muni. Yes, both of them. Yeah. So who is the father of the Mahuti? Yes, Swambhuva Manu. We heard yesterday how Swambhuva Manu was requesting Kardama Muni to take his daughter as his wife because he wants the population of the world, like the world to be filled up, and he wants them to be a part of that process. And although Kardama Muni is a renunciate, he has been a lifelong celibate. He's requesting him to now break his celibacy and enter into Grihastha ashram. So today we're going to see, I think Kardama Muni responded yesterday, but we're going to see more of his response, what he says. So okay, we'll start from verse 15, which is, right when Kardama Muni starts speaking, Krishna Vacha.
One second.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, the database is like down.
Oh, okay. Well, I can just start reading, and if people want to pull up on their phones.
I tried it.
Oh, it's also down.
Yeah, it's not clicking.
No worries.
I mean, we can do with this. I just don't like this website. It's not true.
Okay, that's very resourceful.
It's so small.
She might just said.
No, we go to verse 15.
Yes.
No, you can just do it there. Yeah, I'll read verse 15. Rishi Ruvacha, the great sage, replied, this is Kardama Muni speaking. Certainly I have a desire to marry, and your daughter has not yet married or given her word to anyone. Therefore, our marriage according to the Vedic system can take place. Verse 16, next. Let your daughter's desire for marriage, which is recognized in the Vedic scriptures, be fulfilled. Who will not accept her hand? She is so beautiful that by her bodily luster alone, she excels the beauty of her ornaments. Wow. What a nice compliment.
Okay, now we got it.
Go to verse 7.
I've heard that Vishvasa, the great Gandharva,
This is verse 17 of 26.
his mind stupefied with infatuation, fell from his airplane after seeing your daughter playing with a ball on the roof of the palace. For she was indeed beautiful with her tinkling ankle bells and her eyes moving to and fro.
wise man would not welcome her, the very ornament of womanhood, the beloved daughter of Swayambhu Brahmanu and sister of Bhutanaka. Those who have not worshipped the gracious feet of the goddess of fortune cannot even perceive her, yet she has come of her own accord to seek my hand.
Therefore, I shall accept this chaste girl as my wife. On the condition that she bears seed in my body, I shall accept the life and devotion grace accepted by the most perfect human beings. This process is described by Lord Vishnu. It is free from me.
The highest authority for me is the unlimited Supreme Personality of Godhead, from whom this wonderful creation emanates, and in whom its sustenance and dissolution rest. He is the origin of all the projectiles, the personalities meant to produce living entities in this world.
Shrimatra said, "O great warrior Vidura, the sage Kardama said, this much only, and then because silent, thinking of his worshipful Lord Vishnu, who has a lotus on his navel, and as he sadly smiled, his face captured the mind of Devahuti, who began to meditate on the grace."
After having unmistakably known the decision of the queen, as well as that of Devahuti, the emperor most gladly gave his daughter to the sage, whose host of virtues was equaled by hers.
Who is next?
Empress Satarupa lovingly gave most valuable presents suitable for the occasion, such as jewelry, clothes, and household articles, and dowry to the bride and bridegroom.
Thus relieved of his responsibility by handing over his daughter to a suitable man, Swayambhu Manu, his mind agitated by feelings of separation, embraced his affectionate daughter with both his arms.
The emperor was unable to bear the separation of his daughter, therefore tears poured from his eyes again and again, drenching his daughter's head as he cried, "My dear mother, my dear daughter."
After seeking and obtaining the great sage's permission to leave, the monarch mounted his chariot with his wife and started for his capital, followed by his Venturer. Along the way, he saw the prosperity of the tranquil seer's beautiful hermitages. On both the charming banks of the Saraswati, the river so agreeable to the saintly persons.
So that's all that we're reading for today. Thank you, everyone. And just a quick note in verse 25, the king says, "My dear mother, my dear daughter." It could seem like strange, like he's addressing his daughter, but also calling her his mother. And I know certain people, even in India, I've seen my grandfather sometimes affectionately call his daughter like Ma, like, "Oh, can you please give this to me?" And this is like a common custom, like when people usually address their daughters also as mother, like out of respect or out of affection. It's not strange in certain contexts. We don't see that here. We don't practice that here, but this is something which is commonly practiced. And it's so befitting we are talking about a wedding and what a festive occasion it was, and we saw a beautiful wedding a couple of days ago. Shruti and Surya's beautiful wedding, which brings many of us here to Gainesville. And I just wanted to appreciate like Shruti Sagar Prabhu is not here, so I can say it very openly. I was just observing that he was like, both him and Surya were the man of and women of the hour. They were the person everyone was celebrating. But them, like when I was observing them, and whenever any of the senior devotees would come, any of his friends would come, Shruti would so like kindly like talk to them, embrace them. He was not thinking that, oh, I'm just here and everyone's just basking in his appreciation, but he was just dealing with everyone else very respectfully and engaging in his relations. And I was feeling he came to me and thanked me, like, and just gave me a hug, and it's like, oh, I just came to enjoy the good food. But thank you for like thinking of me very kindly. It just shows like his mood. He's always in the service mentality. Not it's not thinking that this is my day. I'm gonna enjoy it, but he's more worried about how everyone else is being served, how everyone else is being taken care of. And that is a very ideal like question of marriage that we saw. We'll come back to verse 19, which is the verse for today. Yeah, it's already here. अतो भजिष्ये समयेन साध्वीम् यावत् तेजो बिभ्र्यादात्मनो मे अतो धर्मान् पारमहंस्य मुख्यान् शुक्लप्रोक्तान् बहुमन्ये अभीष्टान् अतो भजिष्ये समयेन साध्वीम् यावत् तेजो बिभ्र्यादात्मनो मे अतो धर्मान् पारमहंस्य मुख्यान् शुक्लप्रोक्तान् बहुमन्ये विहिंसान् अतो वदिष्ये समयेन साध्वीम् यावत् तेजो बिभ्र्यादात्मनो मे अतो धर्मान् पारमहंस्य मुख्यान् शुक्लप्रोक्तान् बहुमन्ये विहिंसान्
अथो भजिष्ये समयेन साध्वम् यावत् तेजो बिभ्र्यादात्मनो मे अथो धर्मान् परमहंस्य मुख्यान् शुक्लप्रोक्तान् बहुमन्येन विहिंसान्
अतो वर्षे समयेन साध्वम् यावत् तेजो बृहत् आत्मनो मे आतो धर्मं परमहंस्य मुख्यम् शुक्लप्रोक्तान् बहुमन्ये विहिंसान्
अथो वचिष्ये समयेन साध्वीम् यावत् तेजो बिभ्र्यादात्मनो मे अतो धर्मान् परमहंस्य मुख्यान् शुक्लप्रोक्तान् बहुमन्ये
Your translation. Therefore, I shall accept this chaste girl as my wife on the condition that after she bears semen from my body, I shall accept the life of devotional service, accepted by the most perfect human beings. That process was described by Lord Vishnu. It is free from envy. Purport. Have 3 volunteers read. So one purport. We will get started with it.
I can't see that. I think this Kedama Muni expressed his desire for a very beautiful wife to Emperor Swayambhuva and accepted the emperor's daughter to marriage. Then Dharma Muni was in the hermitage practicing complete celibacy as a brahmachari, and although he had the desire to marry, he did not want to become a householder for the whole span of his life because he was conversant with the Vedic principles of human life. According to the Vedic principles, the first part of life should be utilized in brahmacharya for the development of character and spiritual qualities. And the next part of life, one should accept a wife and beget children, but one should not beget children like cats and dogs.
Thank you.
Cardinal Muni desired to beget a child who would be a ray of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One should beget a child who can perform the duties of Vishnu. Otherwise, there is no need to produce children. There are two kinds of children born of good fathers. One is educated in Krishna consciousness so that he can be delivered from the clutches of Maya in that very life. And the other is a ray of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and teaches the world the ultimate goal of life. As will be described in later chapters, Cardinal Muni begot such a child, Kapila, the incarnation of the personality of Godhead, who enunciated the philosophy of Samkhya. Great philosophers, great householders pray to God to send his representative so that there may be an auspicious movement in human society. There is one reason to be a child. Another reason, this is one reason to be a child. Another reason is that a highly enlightened parent can train a child in Krishna consciousness so that the child will not have to come back again to this miserable world. Parents should see to it that the child born of them does not enter the womb of the mother again. Unless one can train a child for liberation in that life, there is no need to marry or produce children. If human society produces children like cats and dogs for the disturbance of social order, then the world becomes hellish, as it has in this age of Kali. In this age, neither parents nor their children are trained. Both are animalistic and simply eat, sleep, mate, defend, and gratify their senses. This disorder in social life cannot bring peace to human society. Cardinal Muni explains beforehand that he would not associate with the girl named Huti for the whole duration of his life. He would simply associate with her until she had a child. In other words, sex life should be utilized only to produce a nice child, not for any other purpose. Human life is especially meant for complete devotion to the service of the Lord. That is the philosophy of virtue.
Last paragraph.
After fulfilling his responsibility to produce a nice child, one should take sannyas and engage in the perfectional Paramahamsa stage. Paramahamsa refers to the most highly elevated perfectional stage of life. There are 4 stages within sannyas life, and Paramahamsa is the highest order. The Srimad Bhagavatam is called the Paramahamsa Samhita, the treatise for the highest class of human beings. The Paramahamsa is free from envy. In other stages, even in the householder stage of life, there is competition and envy. But since the activities of the human being in the Paramahamsa stage are completely engaged in Krishna consciousness or devotional service, there is no scope for envy. In the same order as Cardinal Muni, about 100 years ago, Thakur Bhakti Vinod also wanted to beget a child who could preach the philosophy and teachings of Lord Chaitanya to the fullest extent. By his prayers to the Lord, he had as his first child Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj, who at the present moment is preaching the philosophy of Lord Chaitanya throughout the entire world through his bona fide disciples.
Thank you very much for reading. Has anyone heard of Chanakya Pandit? Great philosopher and just great philosopher, statesman. He was like minister to one of the famous rulers of India, Chandragupta Maurya, and there's a lot of books about him. And he's not talked about so much in history as a great devotee, but that's what he was. And Prabhupada used to love quoting him on a lot of occasions. He would use Chanakya Pandit's aphorisms, short statements, packed with a lot of philosophical understanding. And one such aphorism or mantra is, I'll just read the translation. Okay, the Sanskrit goes like this: Lavayet panchavarshani, dasavarshani tarayet, praptetu shorasya varshe, Putram Mitra Vadacharit. It's talking about how to parent your kid, like how to be a good parent. And what Chanakya Pandit's formula was, until a kid is 5 years old, you should fill them with affection, give them a lot of love, like whatever they need, give to them. From the age of 6 to 16, use a stick, which means that that's how people usually talk about it, but which means that you have to teach them etiquette and discipline and just how to be a good human being. You have to be a little strict with them. You cannot just let them do whatever they want to do, like it's their life. But at that stage, through 5 to 16, 6 to 16, they need discipline, they need some good training. And after the child has attained the age of 16, then you're supposed to be a friend with them. You also have a saying in English, when the son or the daughter, they're big enough to fill the shoes of the father, that time you know that you have to be a friend to them. Anyways, I was learning Sanskrit when I was in 8th or 9th grade, and then I came upon this verse. And at that time, I was like 14 years of age, so I was very excited. So once I turn 16, I can use this verse on my father. Like, you're supposed to be my friend, like, don't chastise me or don't be too harsh to me. Obviously, that didn't work. Fathers in India or anywhere in general, they like to have some authority over their kids. But still, I'm very grateful to the way that my parents raised me, my parents taught me Krishna consciousness. It gradually happened that they like weaned off on using the stick and they just became like good friends. They did not need my advice to them on asking them to stop doing so. So there's a lot of points mentioned in this purport, and one of them is how to be a good parent. What should a good parent do? And it seems like it's something far-fetched for us. Right now we're sitting as brahmacharis, and mostly brahmacharinis in Grihastha ashram. We don't have kids, but this is very relevant to all of us because eventually we won't stay in the ashram for very long. So we might take up the householder life, or we are already started being in the householder stage of life. So how do we accept these instructions by Prabhupada? Some of them were really stuck out to be really strong to me. Did anything like that strike out to you? It's Kunti?
I'm sure you're gonna talk about it. But that statement, it comes back very often, like, this is the only way that you can be with your partner, or that even if you won't do it like that, you should marry at all.
Yeah, the statement that sex life should be utilized only to produce a nice child, not for any other purpose. Yes, that statement comes up often, and it's a source of confusion for a lot of devotees entering household life. And I've heard a lot of statements by Mahaprabhu Prabhu, he likes to speak about this often, that Prabhupada said that is the highest standard. But perhaps not all of us are able to sustain to that standard when we enter Grihastha life. And also, often I hear from other senior devotees that what happens between a man and a woman, husband and his wife, is completely between them and the spiritual mentors. It's not something that is to be talked about in public. Oh, okay, how are they engaging? Only to produce a child or not to produce a child. But at least in our society, we have these norms that we only engage in sexual activity in a proper marriage, in a properly conducted Vedic marriage. We do not engage in, take this vow of regulation that we do not engage in sexual activity illicitly outside of marriage. So that is at least the standard that we all aspire to, we should follow, not aspire to follow, that we should follow, and we do follow. But there's other statements also mentioned in the purport, things like, if one cannot, unless one can train a child for liberation in that life, there is no need to marry or produce children. That also seems like a very strong statement. Like, are you supposed to be completely enlightened? Are you supposed to completely have it all down before you decide that you want to get married? And you need to be confident in that. I'm going to deliver whoever is going to come into my family. Whatever son or daughter comes, I'll teach them how to be pure devotee, and I'll teach them how to go back to Godhead. Well, the truth is that mostly or everyone at this stage before they enter Grihastha ashram, they're not very sure about themselves. They haven't fully discovered themselves. They're not sure if they can carry themselves to back to Godhead. What to speak about being confident, that I'm going to liberate my child. That seems like a very high statement. Also, there's another verse in the 5th canto, which goes like, Guru Nasasya Swajano Nasasya. One who cannot deliver his dependents from the path of repeated birth and death should never become a spiritual master, a father, a husband, a mother, or a worshipable demigod. Again, like very high standards, unless you have that capability, you should not become all these things. But we also hear from Kalakanta Prabhu yesterday that we have so many acharyas in this movement. Does that mean that everyone has to be on the Paramahamsa stage before they start teaching it to others? All the fathers, all the husbands, all the mothers in our society are fully capable of delivering other people. You can see it in different ways. Narad Mani, yeah, you have a comment?
Yeah, I was just thinking like, I, even if we don't feel like we can take them back to God, we at least can connect them with people who can.
Yeah, this is actually, all this verse can be taken in that way, that there's this societal pressure. I know, like, reflecting back, I could see that my parents felt that, and other devotee parents in the society felt that if you're a good devotee, but your son or daughter does not take up to this path, it's so shameful. Like, what will other devotees say? Like, oh, this person is doing so much service in the temple, but their kid does not want anything to do with this. He just wants to be a materialist. It's so embarrassing. People could take it like that. Like, if I'm a good devotee, I'm trying to be a good devotee, my son or daughter, they should also take up this process. They should, like, what do you say? You glorify the name of your parents. Oh, he's the son or daughter of such and such. He's so wonderful. His parents must be so wonderful. But this is like a societal saying. That is not what exactly this verse means. I'm going to speak more about how we can actually interpret this verse. But Alex had something to say.
Back in 2022, when we were at Kalakanta's Vyasa Puja, remember we went to Kelly's house? I asked her with Kelly, like, I was like, oh, your kids are gonna be Krishna conscious? And she was like, oh, if Krishna willing, they will. She was like, I'll just put it around them so they grow up seeing it, so we don't force it upon them.
Mm-hmm.
See, growing up in my family, they try to like shove Jesus in my face all the time, and like the Bible and stuff. And it made me actually reject it even more. Maybe, like, you know, God willing, if I have my own kids, God, if that happens. If I have my own kids, I think my aim would be is to just put Krishna around the house, like Rita Kelly does, you know, see the arti being done in the morning in the house and all that. And then if they want to follow me, then they'll just mimic what I do. That would be wise. That would be a way to do it, right?
Yeah, that's exactly a lot of things I was going to mention. You already said that. The children are easily moldable. You give them affection, you show them what the right thing is to do by your actions, they'll most likely follow. Yes.
Very similar to that. Okay, well, to deliver our children back to God, it doesn't mean they're going to necessarily do it. They have the free will. We just have to have the qualifications to be able to do it. There's always free will. Lord Nishananda, I don't know, so many sons, 3 or 6 or something like that. And not all we can control. And yet we never lose our free will.
And that's a very important concept of free will. We can impose Krishna consciousness or anything upon kids, thinking as they are my property. Like, I'm going to teach them what to do, and they're going to do exactly what that is. But it's never going to work out like that. We also heard yesterday about Prabhupada. Obviously, we cannot compare Prabhupada's life to ours, but we can take lessons. Not all of his kids, like his acharya of the whole world, Jagadguru, but not all of his kids decided to take up Krishna consciousness. We're hearing yesterday from Kalakanta Prabhu that they had their own decisions, they had their own lives, and not even his wife wanted to support him. But what this verse is actually talking about, that one should be ready to train their offspring or train whoever is depending on them, as a husband, as a spiritual master or father. You should be willing to give that knowledge to whoever is depending on you. They take it up or they don't take it up, it's their free will. It's completely up to them. That's what, again, what Chanakya Pandit teaches us, that until a certain age you give them affection, after that you give them a lot of training and discipline, but after that all you can expect to do is just be a friend with them. And they take it up, they don't take it up. At least what you can do is make sure that they trust you and they think that, oh, my father is a very caring person. My mother is a very caring mother, she's very affectionate. My spiritual master, he always cares about me, he wants to find out like how I'm doing. Even if you don't want to do anything with the path, if they don't question their relationships, the relationship they have with devotees, that is the ultimate success for them. And we should also remember this fact that there is no loss or diminution on this path. So whatever a child does, or any person does on the path of devotional service, they just mimic their parents and they do some arati, they mimic their parents and sing some kirtan or do some chanting. I'm sure like all of us who were born in devotee families had this experience. If we're still doing it, maybe we had a good experience, that's why we're still like trying to do it. I know a lot of these people born in the movement who had to face like what Alex was describing, they were forced to practice Krishna consciousness from a very young age. And it's a hit or miss. A lot of them don't want anything to do with the society because they feel like just their whole existence was completely imposed upon. They did not have any choice given to them. And it's this experience of raising a child is also very similar to when we're preaching and when we get a new bhakta or bhaktin and they come to the temple, we might feel similarly, oh, I'm such a good preacher, I'm going to teach them what is the right thing to do. And we might become very attached to them, that because I'm teaching them, they will take up this process in 1 or 2 years. It was very easy for me, or yeah, however it was for me, and because I'm teaching them, they're going to exactly follow this process. But after a few years, because of their own life choices, because of their own situations in life, they might not want to take it up as their teacher is doing. And I was going through such a thing like similarly, and I had to reflect that okay, I invested a lot in this friendship, my friendship with this particular person. But if they don't want to do anything, they want to with devotional life, they want to listen to some other philosophy, whatever they want to do. Initially, I felt that, okay, what was wrong with me? Was I not enough, like, in providing my friendship with them, that they could trust that this is a legit process? But in reflecting, I realized that it is not under my control. It's not under my control how they take up this process and how they want to practice it. The best I can do, I'm still learning how to do, is just keep offering my friendship so that they can at least think of devotees in a good way. They don't have to think that this is, otherwise it just becomes more and more like a cult. If we are following this, that's why everyone we tell, like everyone we see, they also have to follow it exactly as we do. And that's what cults do, they take away the choice of free will. And that is not what this philosophy of bhakti, of this ancient Vedic tradition teaches us. It's not a matter of imposing this philosophy on anyone else, but it is to only show them that this process is available, this option is available. You can consider it. There's this verse in Chaitanya Charitamrita that says, Shri Krishna Chaitanya Daya Karaha Vichar Karile Chitte Pave Chamatkar. Just consider the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Like if you're an intelligent person, if you have intelligence, just consider what he has given to us. And if you properly, thoughtfully consider, then you'll find wonderful like feelings in your heart, you'll find amazement in your heart. That is all we can actually say to people like while spreading this Krishna consciousness movement. Just consider this, like this is what I'm experiencing, this is my life experience. That's what a parent can do to their child too. Like dear child, this is the philosophy that I've learned, and this is how it has wonderfully transformed my heart. So right now you're in a different situation of life. Just remember what I'm telling you. Maybe at a particular stage of life, this will be helpful to you. Similarly, the same goes to any new person. Anyways, I had this realization that there's so much parallel between what we say, cultivating a new person, like teaching them how to practice devotional service, and raising a child. And if they do become a devotee or don't become a devotee. These are some of the themes that came up in this purport and want to address them. I have more to say too, but I would like to hear if anyone else has any additions, questions, comments. If anyone wants to share, something sweet about their parents, what they remember, like in terms of spirituality, maybe, yeah, how they supported you and how they encouraged you. You can, yeah, anything is welcome.
It wasn't about parents.
Yeah.
Although I could speak about that for days,
Mhm.
how kind and supportive they are. That's granted. There was something else actually I noticed on a very first verse of this section, in verse 17. It's interesting how it starts. And granted, this is all for the lead up to unfold and for Billy to appear. But is it? I thought he already had the desire of marriage all throughout.
Yeah, I wasn't sure about that. I first thought he was only doing it because some woman was asking him to do it.
Yeah, it looks like that in verse 15. It says, certainly I have a desire to marry.
Yeah. That was a little confusing for me too when I read it. Maybe he had that desire, but he never expressed it. He knew that this was going to be his role. But he makes it very clear that I'm going to accept your daughter as my wife on one condition, that after she has a certain number of children, then I'm going to take up the path of devotional service fully. I'm going to renounce this life, like renounce the household life. So we can again ask this question, is he being an irresponsible husband by making this condition? Prabhupada talks about the Varnashram system, or how a husband should, or any person, mostly it's talked about like male-bodied human beings, that after a certain age, they should accept this path of renunciation, they should take sannyas. You become a celibate until 25 years, you have household life of 25 more years, and then you take vanaprastha, then you ultimately become a sannyas. So how do these instructions apply to us in the modern life, and how do we understand what Pradama Muni did? Seems like he was very strict about what he wanted to do, and was that unfair to Devahuti, his wife? There's a lot of questions, and I don't think I can answer all of them, but I can try to share what I understand, how we can apply this in our lives. And I can share that from my own experience in seeing what my parents are doing and what I see a lot of our spiritual masters are doing. Prabhupada also says in one of the purpose that if you have a wife or if you have a husband who is supporting you in devotional life, then that is as good as sannyas. You don't have to leave everything and go to the forest. You see Kalkanta Prabhu, he stays with his family in Alachua. Maybe people have questioned him, like, why don't you take sannyas? You were like at such an advanced stage. But what he shares with me is that, why do I need to take sannyas? I'm getting to do more than what I ever expected to do just by being in the Grihastha like ashram. My wife is so supportive, or my friends, my relatives, they're supportive. I'm getting to travel as much as I want in a year. I come to Krishna house, I share wisdom with everyone. People can depend upon me. Why do I initially need to take up this ashram of sannyas? And that sannyas ashram also has its own like complications, has its own like challenges. So why to create an artificial challenge when I don't need to do so? The principle is that after a certain number of years, you should try to retire yourself from all your house like material responsibilities. Let's say you're engaged in a very highly responsible job. You can't expect, like as devotee, maybe don't try to be in such highly responsible positions in the society until you're 70 or 80. At a certain age, it's good to step back and let other people take up managerial or other executive positions. Then what you can do is you can focus on taking care of others and also taking care of your devotional life like forward. That is in a way Vanaprastha ashram. That is what I saw my father do. After a certain age, when he was eligible for retirement, in the Indian government system, they have an option that after 60, you have to be retired, but you can still keep working with half the pay for 5 more years or 10 more years. And I have seen like my friends' parents, they continue to work even though they're of 65 and 66, they're a certain age, because they're just so bored at home. Like, what do I do after taking like retirement? What do I do at home? I have nothing else to do, so let me just keep working even if they pay me half the money. Let me just start another profession. And that's the best way people think they can spend retirement. My father, when he reached that age, he was like, I don't want anything to do with this. I've served this government, I have served my work for 30 or more years. I want to fully serve like
my work.
Kya, Mayapur, in his case, Cuttack, the local temple. And that is basically what he does. He stays at home, like he comes home for Prashadam in the morning from 3:30 to 9:30 a.m. he's at the temple. In the afternoon from 4 until 8 he's at the temple. And he comes, like he does his family responsibilities. When I'm home, like he's there, like to talk to us. He does the grocery shopping every day, make sure the vegetables are there for everyone to like honor Prashadam every day. So he has certain duties that he does, but his primary responsibility is like just engaging in the temple. And he was an engineer, so he used all his knowledge in helping build the temple. I'm sure I've seen Radhika's dad also, that despite being a fully fledged, like working professional, he spends so much of his time like arranging programs for like the students and taking care of other devotees, going to holy places. So we have a lot of examples in our society of what you can ideally do instead of artificially taking up vanaprastha or saying that this is a varnashram system, I should be retired and leave everything and go away. There's a lot of practical examples that we see in our current day that we can do. Okay, I think I've spoken quite a lot. So yeah, please share more thoughts and comments or questions before the Prashadam comes. We have Fasira and then Kunti.
Yeah. Okay. I think Kalakanta is, not Kalakanta, Mahatma Prabhu has said before that Krishna is a love addict. So, he just wants our love. So of course, that's not love. So it's really sweet to hear that because, I feel like I got that a lot from my parents growing up. But I also like expected higher standards or something like this. So when I came to Krishna consciousness, I was like, here's the highest standards. And for some reason, I like took that so seriously. And I really love this practice for that. So I do have that feeling of like, oh, I should be doing it too. Because I want to be doing it with others, I guess. So there's that feeling, but it's like, that's just not how love is. But my parents had so much affection for me, and I was able to make, if you will, so many mistakes. And they still love me and even helped me towards God, which I didn't fully believe, except for like God is love and like that one husband. And so anyways, it's just an interesting experience growing up, being a child in any regard and coming into this world. And it's really nice to have this Krishna consciousness and even to have the highest standard, but also to love everyone for where they're at and where we are at. So I really appreciate your class today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your comment.
I wonder what makes it so that some people that are born into movie families are born in circumstances that really encourages them to take up Krishna consciousness. For me, it was like that, even though like if you look at it from an outside perspective, it looks very favorable. Like my dad was a devotee, but we weren't following the principles before I was older, and we were really far from the temple. I didn't have devotee association, but it made my desire to take up Krishna consciousness very, very strong because the association with material nature was so repulsive. As a contrast with the little glimpse of like Krishna consciousness I would get. I mean, we had them at home, but like we would go to the temple once a year kind of thing. So anyways, but then I hear about devotees who grew up in Krishna consciousness and just got totally repulsed by Krishna consciousness because of where we grew up. But in both cases, if we were born in a devotee family, it means that somehow something happened in their past life. So why is it that some people have nice circumstances and others don't?
It's said in Bhagavad Gita, Shritinam Shrimatam Gehi Yoganashta Parantapa. Like when a yogi is not able to achieve his complete destination, is stuck for some reason, he's given the chance to take birth in the family of either aristocratic person, so does not have to worry about his material necessities, or is given the chance to be born in a devotee's family, so it's given the surrounding, the atmosphere for practicing spiritual life from a very young age. So these are indeed very fortunate souls. Something has happened to them in the previous life that they have taken birth in a devotee family. So why do some of them, take it up, and why some of them don't take it up, and why are there sometimes circumstances which help them, and sometimes it doesn't help them? Yeah, this is such like tough, like complicated question, but when I have Advaita Prabhu speak about it, but one perspective could be that what you experienced was exactly what you needed to be more interested in this path. And sometimes it could be the fault of the parents. We cannot say fault, and because they have their own choices and their own activities, that they decide to impose something upon the child, and that's why the child grows up to not like it at all. I had a phase in college too where I did not want to do anything with devotional service, and and actually it was good that I went through that phase, because then I could understand that this is my choice to practice devotional service, and I don't want to do this just because my parents are doing it. And so Krishna somehow gives us these experiences, these phases of ups and downs, even after being born in a devotee family, so we can choose to love Krishna and not just love him because someone else is doing that. But it's really unfortunate that a lot of people go away from this path because they have a bad experience. And what can we say? Where are they on their path? Maybe they will come back to take this process again. But as a society, we should be very careful that we don't make anyone feel like that. Next generation, when we become parents, we can make sure that we don't subject our children to something so rigid and strict that, and lack of affection, that they grow up to be repelled by this Krishna consciousness. That's something that I have to share. Thank you. Last comment by Veda Prabhu before we start the class.
Yeah, this is a very, very important point. I call it Siddhartha syndrome. When the youth of the emperor happens in a bubble, the bubble that is completely cut off from the world or isolated. And in Kunti's case, there was isolation, but also there were only celebrities that once a year, twice a year, once in a blue moon. So they had to deal with it. So then a point of reference, so it was like Buddha. So what happened to Siddhartha? He saw the death, well, he saw the old age, he saw the sick person, he saw ultimately saw the death of the burning gap. And so that was part of his awakening. But if you stay in that bubble and you don't integrate in society, what can happen is like, well, two things. Whenever that happens, all of a sudden and all at once, it can be very shocking for the system. You get swept away from material energy, or you can remain in that because you're so like unaccustomed. You can try to forcefully remain in that bubble out of fear. And still miss on the point of bhakti or love.
Yeah.
And the whole point is of all this knowledge, all these beautiful resources that we have is to apply them in the real life, in the real time.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Is there a comment?
Reminded me of something Prabhupada would say about parenting, which is child worship is more important than deity worship. And parents are unable to properly raise their kids, they should put the deities back in the box. And so it's so important that whenever we do become parents, that we see that my children were actually gifted to me, and it's my service to Krishna to raise them properly because they are Krishna's property. And these are Vaikuntha, probably called Vaikuntha children. So, it's so important to remember that even with our spouse, with any relationship, we're dealing with Vaishnavas, to not make offenses.
Thank you very much for saying that. Thank you everyone for your comments and thoughtful suggestions. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Bhagavatam ki Jai. Pranam Prashadam ki Jai.
Nitai Gauranga Prabhu ki Jai.
Prasade Govinde Nam Brahmani Vaishnave Sarvanya Vadam Rajan Vishwasave